Leaders a little bit gone, but for the most part, and frankly, I think that's regime change. I think they're going to behave much differently.
So, Bakari, I'm not sure on what basis he's saying that, because when you read the deal, you can see how Iran has gotten a lot of what they wanted out of this negotiation.
I mean, I think to be extremely plain and clear, we went into the war in a posture where Donald Trump lied to the American public repeatedly about destroying or obliterating their ballistics efforts, going in and deteriorating their nuclear arsenal. At the end of the day, we lost American lives and soldiers. We paid the Iranian government $300 billion in reparations.
The Iran deal has now been released, and even Trump's own allies are calling it a disaster. We're hearing words like surrender, grave capitulation, and the worst foreign policy blunder in decades. And those are coming from Republicans and Fox News hosts, not Democrats. Bakari Sellers is at the table tonight with a panel that covers the full spectrum of perspectives. And what emerges from this conversation is a damning picture of a war that was sold to the American people on false premises, cost American lives and tens of billions of dollars, and ended with Iran in a better position than when it started. Let's get into this, and I'll give you my full thoughts on the other side by
is usually irrelevant and meaningless. It's only what they will say in their own language publicly that actually counts. So it's actually the opposite of the U.S. I don't want to insult any politicians here, but politicians politicians typically, they're criticized for lying in public but telling you the truth in private. In the Middle East, it's exactly the opposite. They will actually say the truth only in public, but in private they'll say whatever you want to hear. So until we actually see what the terms are and how the negotiations go forward, on the face of it, first of all, I wouldn't trust those back channel and those commitments. We'd have to see what they are on paper, because that kind of vagueness is exactly where Iran is an expert at basically using ambiguity for their own purposes.
Yeah. Let me play what President Trump said about Iran's new leadership. He seems to think that he's gotten a new crop of people that have changed their ways. Listen.
They have a new group of leaders that I think is, I think they're smarter. I think they're very smart. I think they're far less radicalized, and I think they're really good. They love their country. You talk about regime change. Nobody will say that, but I guess their one set of leaders is all gone. Their second set of leaders is all gone. Their third set of leaders a little bit gone, but for the most part, and frankly, I think that's regime change. I think they're going to behave much differently.
So, Bakari, I'm not sure on what basis he's saying that, because when you read the deal, you can see how Iran has gotten a lot of what they wanted out of this negotiation.
I mean, I think to be extremely plain and clear, we went into the war in a posture where Donald Trump lied to the American public repeatedly about destroying or obliterating their ballistics efforts, going in and deteriorating their nuclear arsenal. At the end of the day, we lost American lives and soldiers. We paid the Iranian government $300 billion in reparations.
Well, we haven't paid that yet.
We will.
It is a fund that would be established.
It was a fund. Okay. We spent $30 million or $29 million in fighting the war. We've lifted sanctions on Iran. And let me just say something. Very rarely do you get Bakari Sellers, Trey Gowdy, and Nikki Haley, like all great South Carolinians, singing from the same sheet of music on the fact that Donald Trump lost the war. I mean, let's be extremely clear. I mean, when people watch this show, they watch it for the exchange of ideas and the breadth of honesty. But there's not one person who can come on this show and say that our objectives were met. Barack Obama went in, and I have a ton of friends who tell me all the time that the deal was not as strong as they wanted it to be. but we spent about $1.8 billion. A lot of that was unfrozen Iranian assets. We actually were able to secure 98% of their enriched uranium. They were further away from a nuclear weapon than they are today. That may not have been the 100% success that people wanted, but Donald Trump ripped that up and also ripped up our global standing, and we went backwards.
So, I mean, he just asked, can anyone defend it? Can you?
Well, I mean, first I would start with a series of questions. Who paid Iran $300 billion?
Well, it's a fund that will be. It's in paragraph.
As I explained. Hold on.
We haven't done
No,
that.
hold on.
Yeah.
Well, as I explained, the text of the deal establishes, or it posits that there would be a fund that the United States would facilitate being established for the reconstruction of Iran. Right. It suggests that the Gulf states would play a role in funding that fund.
Right.
So, there are parts of it that are vague, but it promises to the Iranians up to $300 billion in funds to rebuild the country that we destroyed.
Although I'll just add, I'll just add, it says the mechanism for the implementation of that will be finalized only as part of a final deal. So that part of it is not going to start on Friday. But,
right.
And so this is where accuracy matters, right? You can't say on national television that the president has given.
Well, Tim, I corrected him on that.
Did, and I'm
but there are other points about the one thing that isn't in dispute that happens as of today, apparently, is that the oil sanctions are lifted. Mm-hmm. So that is happening right now.
Absolutely.
So that's
hold on. Let me let
60
him
to 70 billion.
Let me
start from that point.
The point I'll start from is this total mischaracterization that Donald Trump lost the war. First of all, the one objective, the strategic objective that the president was very clear about from day one was that we did not want them to procure a nuclear weapon. In that deal, one of those 14 points is Iran coming to the table and saying, we will not.
Can I ask you a very simple question?
I let you finish.
Go ahead, because I want you to ask, was that in the JCPOA or not?
Go ahead. I let you finish. There we go. So that's in one of those points, right? Is that we don't get a nuclear weapon, a nuclear armed Iran. That was the one strategic objective the president had going into this, and that's victory. And so I don't know why.
Can I ask you a simple question? Was that in the JCPOA or not? Was it word for word or not?
Actually, Bakari, I'm glad you asked. The JCPOA actually just gave a landing strip for the Iranians
it literally
to
said
get
the
to a nuclear weapon.
So
let's just acknowledge what just happened here, because it is genuinely extraordinary. Bakari Sellers, Trey Gowdy, and Nikki Haley, free South Carolinians who agree on almost nothing, are all saying the same thing. Donald Trump lost this war. When you have Fox News hosts and former Republican presidential candidates using the same language as progressive Democrats to describe an outcome, you are not looking at partisan spin. You are looking at a reality that is too obvious to deny across the political spectrum. Now let's go through what this deal actually contains, because the details matter. Iran gets its oil sanctions lifted immediately. That alone could deliver $60 to $70 billion a year directly to the Iranian government. Iran gets the Strait of Hormuz naval blockade lifted. Iran gets unfrozen assets and significant sanctions relief. And there is a framework for a potential $300 billion reconstruction fund that the United States would facilitate being established, funded by Gulf allies. On the other side, Iran reaffirms that it will not procure or develop nuclear weapons, which is language that was also in the JCPOA, the deal Trump spent years calling the worst agreement in American history, and the fate of Iran's nuclear enrichment program to be determined later, the ballistic missile program. Trump himself said in an interview that maybe Iran can keep them because everyone else in the neighborhood has them, the same missiles the administration said it was going to destroy as a primary objective of this war. Bakari Sellers put it simply and correctly. We lost American lives. We spent roughly $30 billion fighting this war. We are now lifting sanctions on the country we went to war with. We are facilitating a $300 billion reconstruction fund for the country we bombed, and the nuclear program remains intact enough that enrichment levels and inspection mechanisms are still being negotiated. Trump said he obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities. He said it repeatedly, and yet here we are with enrichment still on the table in the final agreement. The expert on the panel, who has deep knowledge of Iranian negotiating culture, made a point that deserves more attention than it got. In the Middle East, what people say to you privately in English is essentially meaningless. What counts is what they commit to publicly in their own language. The administration is reportedly telling people not to take the published 14-point text at face value because there are back-channel commitments from the Iranians. But those are exactly the kinds of assurances that have no binding force in Middle Eastern diplomatic practice. If it is not in writing, publicly stated in Persian, and subject to an enforcement mechanism, it is not a commitment. It is an aspiration that Iran's leadership can walk away from the moment it becomes inconvenient. And then there's the fundamental contradiction at the heart of how this war was sold versus how it ended. The administration said it was going to destroy Iran's ballistic missile capabilities. Those missiles are still there. The administration said it was going to obliterate the nuclear program. The centrifuges were disrupted, but enrichment levels remain negotiable. The administration talked about regime change. The regime has not changed. It got, as one panelist noted, younger and angrier. Trump himself said the night of the bombing that the Iranian people should take their country back. And then the following week said he wanted a role in picking the next Iranian leader. Those are not the words of someone who had a clear strategic objective. Those are the words of someone improvising on the biggest possible stage. And the comparison to the JCPOA is devastating and unavoidable. Under the Obama nuclear deal, Iran had secured 98% of its enriched uranium removed. It was further from a nuclear weapon than it is. Today, the deal is backed by the UN, the EU, China, and Russia. The inspection and verification mechanisms were detailed and enforceable. Trump called it the worst deal ever negotiated and tore it up. And what we appear to be ending up with is something that may end up resembling a worse version of the same framework. Without the multilateral backing, without China and Russia at the table, and with Iran having gained economic concessions it did not have before the war started, the American people were promised a quick, decisive operation that would leave America stronger and Iran weaker. What they got was 100+ days of war, American casualties, record energy prices, devastating effects on farming communities and working families, and a deal that Fox News and Nikki Haley are calling a surrender. That is not a spin, that is the record. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I'll see you in the next one.